My name is Andrew Stotz, and I'm going to introduce you to James Clear and his book, Atomic Habits. I've read it many times, and I decided to break it down. And I'm breaking it down into 6 parts. Let's look at the first part. Habits help us achieve outcomes. Remember, this is my interpretation of atomic habits. In fact, I've got it on my bookshelf. It's right there. It's right there, except I just moved it into another room. So, remember, you can go into the link below, click on it, and you can download the Atomic Habits cheat sheet. All of what I'm going to talk in this video is right there in the cheat sheet. Also, in this video, you're going to meet 14 experts on habits. So, we succeed through our habits. One of the big lessons that I learned from this book is that a habit is a framework. It's not an action. I used to think a habit was an action. And if you understand this framework, you're going to master your life. Habits help us build simple ways to handle life's challenges. Now, I told you I'm going to introduce you to a bunch of people. The first one is Samuel Johnson. He was an English writer and one of the most distinguished men of letters in English history. And he said, "The chain of habits are too light to be felt until they are too heavy to be broken." We succeed through our habits. We apply habits to help us solve problems with as little effort as possible. We repeat new habits until they become automatic. And small habits repeated over a long time bring massive change. You've got to believe that. And that's part of the reason why we're focusing on small habits. Aristotle, of course, a Greek philosopher, and he said, "We are what we repeatedly do." You got bad outcomes, you probably have bad habits. If you want good outcomes, you got to get good habits. So start thinking about goal setting and pairing your goals with habits. This is my goal, but what's the habit I need to build? Your habits will determine if you achieve your goals. And goals describe your destination or outcome, like I read 20 books a year. But habits describe how you get there. I read 1 chapter per day. That was such a valuable message in this book, Atomic Habits. I appreciate it a lot. Also, you achieve goals through repetition, putting in the reps. Apply the habit framework to help you repeat specific actions over and over. Focus on repeating new habits, and eventually you're going to see results. Keep improving your habit framework to ensure you achieve your goals. Every repetition of your habit is a step towards becoming the person you want to be. Let me introduce you to Bruce Lee. You may know him. He was a child actor and a martial arts master. He said something very, very profound, and this is it. "I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks, but I do fear the man who has practiced 1 kick 10,000 times." Focus in on practicing your habits. You see, every time we go through a habit loop, we get closer to achieving our goals, and the results is kind of flat. Each one of these little circles on that chart is a habit loop. And what you can see is that you may repeat a lot of habit loops before you start making progress to your goal, but eventually you're going to get there. Now, I like to think, I want to summarize what he said in this book by saying that pain today leads to future pleasure. I call it general rule of habits, and that is pain today brings struggle in the future. Struggle today, meaning working hard on habits, brings pleasure in the future. Which one do you want? Now, in the book, he doesn't talk about it in that exact way, and he doesn't call it what I call it. I call it pleasure habits. So a pleasure habit brings you immediate pleasure, but it brings you long-term pain. Think of smoking. Mark Twain, a very famous, of course, author and many other things, a humorist in America, he said, "A habit cannot be tossed out the window. It must be coaxed down the stairs, one step at a time." In other words, it takes time to get rid of a bad habit. So what do I mean? Let's continue on about pain today leads to future pleasure. Well, if you have habits like smoking, you do not bring yourself closer to a bigger goal, but you do provide an immediate reward. So the next type of habit I call goal habits. They bring immediate pain. They're hard, but long-term pleasure. Goal habits like daily exercise will help you achieve a bigger goal. So focus on switching from pleasure habits to goal habits. Next thing that you learn in the book is about combining a burning desire with daily pleasure. So burning desire comes from the anticipation of getting a result. This has been proven to be more potent than actually achieving the result. Put the power of anticipation to work. Harness this power by building a burning desire to achieve a goal. You think about it. Most people have a goal, but do they have a burning desire? They're going to do everything they possibly can. Do you? That's what you need to build. Now, you want to create a small, positive, pleasurable reward for completing your habit. It could be taking a little break or having a little espresso after your habit. Let's meet Napoleon Hill. He was an American self-help author, and he wrote the book Think and Grow Rich, another book on my shelf. And he said there's one quality which one must possess to win, and that is definiteness of purpose, the knowledge of what one wants, and a burning desire to possess it. So the point is you've got to write it down, and you've got to reinforce that goal. But what James Clear brings to this is that he says you've got to develop the habits that are going to get you to the goal. So let's look at the 4 parts to a habit framework. First, you start with a cue. A cue is a sense, a feeling. It's a sense that ignites that habit framework every single day. It could be a sound, it could be a smell, it could be a place that triggers a craving. Think about people who smoke. They have certain places that they go. Maybe they have the smell of beer and that makes them think of a cigarette. It's a sense. You're often not even aware of the cues in your life, but your brain picks them up. Awareness of the cues that trigger a habit is your first step in changing that habit. So step back and think about it. What are the cues that are going on in your life that you're not even thinking of? So what are those cues? For example, the sound of the boiler heater heating the water in an espresso machine. I have that sound every single morning. Let me tell you a story about my own situation. This is my balcony, and I made this little waterfall. And that waterfall I turn on first thing in the morning when I get up. And I put down my yoga mat as soon as I hear the waterfall. And then I do yoga to that water. I have taken a sound as a cue to trigger my habit framework, or you could call it a habit loop also. And that brings us to the next thing. That's the cue. Now we're going to talk about the craving. Now the craving is a feeling. I want to introduce you to John Maxwell. He's an American author, a speaker. He's written many books, but really his probably most famous one is The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Follow them and people will follow you. And he said, if your habits don't line up with your dream, then you need to either change your habits or change your dream. Simple. Keep it simple. So what about this craving that compels action? A craving is a pleasurable and desired feeling or meaning that you attach to a cue. The minute you hear the cue, you're going to feel some craving. This craving can drive you to almost any action. You crave the outcome. Of course, the response is the difficult behavior you must do to reach that outcome or that reward. So as a smoker, for instance, you're craving that nicotine. As a coffee drinker, I'm craving that final outcome of the caffeine. But there's action I have to take. So the anticipation of caffeine kick to start the day is something that you may crave. Let's now talk in the habit loop about response. Response is the action. It's the action in response to the craving. Your response basically is happening when you feel the craving for the reward. In the past, we thought of action that you take as being the habit. Habit was just something that you did. But we now see it, thanks to James Clear, but also Charles Duhigg and others that have done a lot of work now on habits. We see habit as a framework. You'll understand more in a second. So an example is making and sipping an espresso as the response. In fact, let's talk about Charles Duhigg. He's the first one that really came out with a powerful book called The Power of Habit, Why We Do What We Do in Life. I remember getting that book when I was visiting in America, and I sat down at a coffee shop and I just wrote out all my notes. In fact, I have my notes up here from like 10 or 15 years ago when that came out. And he says, to change a habit, you must keep the old cue and deliver the old reward, but insert a new routine. When he talks about routine, he's really talking about response. Atomic Habits, James Clear calls it response, but Charles calls it a routine. So now we get to the reward. It's the feeling of satisfaction of completion. The reward we experience satisfies the craving and makes us want to repeat the behavior. Desire motivates us to act. Pleasure drives us to repeat that action. It's kind of like the feeling I felt when I finished my yoga this morning. When habits become automatic, we pay less attention to the actions that we take. So an example would be the stimulus that comes as coffee's caffeine is entering into your bloodstream. So let's now dig into the 4 steps to creating a habit. This is what you've got to follow, and you can find this in the cheat sheet. Just check out the message down below in the description, and you'll be able to download it. So here is one of the most famous novelists of all time, a Russian novelist, and I'm gonna botch his name, but Fyodor Dostoevsky. And he wrote Crime and Punishment, The Idiot, Demons, and the Brothers Karamazov. And basically, he's one of the best. But he said this, I think this is great. The second half of a man's life is made up of nothing but the habits he has acquired during the first half. Wow. Get your habits right from the start. So the first thing is to make your habit obvious. Most people fail to achieve their goals because they don't identify the habits that they need to acquire. They also fail because they have not clarified the exact detail of the new habit that they want to acquire. I mean down to the minutia. To succeed, ensure your goals and the habits you must acquire to achieve those goals are also very clear. Make your habits obvious. Let's talk about implementation intentions, which James Clear talks about in Atomic Habits. Express your implementation intention by writing down what, when, and where about your habit. I will, behavior, at time, in location. For example, I will walk for 1 hour at 6 a.m. at the park. Very, very clear implementation intention. That's step number 1. Now, in this area of making your habit obvious, we can also talk about some other things he mentions in the book, like habit stacking. Consider stacking a new habit after an existing habit. After current habit, I will, new habit. Let's look at that. Before my morning espresso, I will read 10 pages in my book. Again, back to Charles Duhigg. Let's see what he said. And once you understand that habits can change, you have the freedom and the responsibility to remake them. I challenge you from now, start to work on remaking those habits. Let's talk, the next one is about temptation building. And we're still talking about the first thing, which is make your habit obvious. Try pairing a habit you need to do with the one that you want to do as a reward. So after habit that I need to do, I will do the habit that I want to do. So I will do 10 push-ups. That's what I need to do before my morning espresso, which is what I want. Or I will start listening to my audiobooks when I arrive at the gym. Next thing is a habit string. So a habit string is when you plan to do a behavior you want to do with one that you must do. So after I get my morning coffee, I will write one thing I'm grateful for. And after I write one thing I'm grateful for, I will read one chapter in my book. That's how we string it together to keep going on that happen. Make it happen with this habit string. Now, also, the next thing is make your habit attractive. Let's talk about this gateway habit. A gateway habit helps you to start your day off right and makes the rest of your day better. You want to ritualize the beginning of your gateway habit framework so you slip into a state of deep focus. For example, exercise or meditate first thing in the morning. Let's meet Thomas Edison. He's an American businessman and inventor holding more than 1,000 U.S. patents, including the phonograph, where you used to play records, the motion picture camera, and early versions of the electric light bulb. The successful person makes a habit of doing what the failing person doesn't like to do. This is a great thing that there's a book called Do Hard Things. And that book is great because if you do hard things, chances are other people aren't going to do them. That's how you can build a competitive advantage. So now let's continue about make your habit attractive. Use the power of association. To achieve significant change in our lives, we often must completely change our environment and our friends. Studies show that humans imitate those close to us, those in our group, and those we perceive as powerful or admirable. So to harness the power of imitation, join a group where your desired behavior is the expected behavior. Now make your habit easy. This is number 3. Start small. Start with a habit that only takes 2 minutes. Like, avoid big habits like, I'm going to start running 5 kilometers each morning starting tomorrow. Instead, start small and make it easy with a habit like, I'll wake up, put my shoes on, and walk out the door. And you may think that that's funny, but the fact is that I have done that one for many years of just getting out the door by 5 a.m. In fact, I play a little game. The guard at our apartment building unlocks the door at 5 a.m. And so if I want to get out earlier than that, I have to wake him up. So I don't want to wake a guy up. So it's 5 a.m. and I just say, I'm going to be down there when he's unlocking the gate. And that's kind of my goal. So I just get out the door. I don't think about the park. I don't think about the gym. I just get out the door. And I've done that for years. And it's so, so good because I've never gone out and turned around and come back. Consider a habit stack like I'll lay out my yoga mat and do 10 squats before my morning espresso. Just keep it simple. If you just built the habit of laying out your yoga mat, doing 10 squats, and having a morning espresso, you did that every single day, trust me, it will start to grow what you will do. John Maxwell said also, I can predict the long-term outcome of your success if you show me your daily habits. So again, let's talk about making habits easy. Practice, you know how we say practice makes perfect? Well, practice makes permanent is what I say. Each time you execute your habit, consider it as practice. That practice makes your habit permanent. Research shows that the number of times, not the number of days, matters to build a new habit. You've got to get the reps in. The more repetitions you do, the closer you are to that habit becoming automatic. So that means that you could even do the habit twice or 3 times a day, as many reps as you possibly can. Also, make it effortless. Reduce the steps between you and your good habits. Set up your environment to make your habits effortless. An effective way to start is by getting away from your old environment. For instance, for me, particularly on Saturday mornings, I love to go to a nearby coffee shop that opens at 6:30 in the morning and set up there. It's such a different scenery and environment, and it allows me to get into a different state. So also, I've created this new environment for my morning yoga on my balcony by adding the waterfall that I showed you before as a sound cue. Make that environment so that it's effortless. And next is plan ahead. To avoid falling victim to temptation, act when your good intentions are strongest. Consider using technology to maybe automate your future habits, to tell you when to do it. A simple one with my mother, who's 83 and knows she needs to walk, but she's not going to come up with that on her own, is I just set the alarm every hour on her mobile phone. When it rings, boom, technology helps her to realize, oh, got to get up. So, and also, by the way, I know that the ring of that phone is a cue, and it sets her into her habit framework instantly. And so by applying that power of habit, I'm helping my mom for sure. Now, Aristotle also said that excellence is an art won by training and habits. So let's look at planning ahead, right? You could prepare healthy meals for the week ahead. You could write in your calendar exactly when you'll exercise in the coming week. In fact, one thing, I don't think I got it out of this book, but I listened to someone who said that they set up appointments for the things that they want to do, like exercise or whatever. And so there's actually calendar events in their calendar. And I don't know about you, but I follow my calendar religiously. If I get up in the morning, my calendar says I have an 8 o'clock meeting. I don't miss that meeting. Also, use technology and one-time purchases to lock in future behavior. Maybe pay for your fitness lesson or membership in advance. I have learned by my online courses that actually the money that students pay is part of the cost of the course, but also it is one of the best accountability buddies that there is. Once you know you have put down a large sum, you are going to be more committed. Also, you could use like a website blocker to cut off your access to social media during your prime work time. Benjamin Franklin, a writer, scientist, one of the founding fathers, amazingly, he set up the Pennsylvania Gazette newspaper at 23. He said, your net worth to the world is usually determined by what remains after your bad habits are subtracted from your good ones. So let's talk about making your habits satisfying, because immediate rewards reinforce habits. You repeat a behavior when the experience is satisfying, and you avoid what is immediately punished. Bring pleasure to your goal-focused habit by pairing it with an immediate reward on completion. Select some short-term reward that will reinforce your identity of who you are becoming, not something that would conflict. So if you're trying to lose weight, reward yourself with a massage rather than an ice cream. Also, intrinsic rewards sustain your new identity. You're going to face a tipping point when you've done habits enough, when you're going to switch from chasing that immediate daily pleasure of the habit to enjoying the intrinsic rewards of reaching your goal. And at that point, your habit becomes who you are. And I know that yoga is a great example for me, is that the more I do it, the more I feel the benefits from a long-term perspective, and then I want to continue being this new person that I am. So your ultimate destination is where your identity sustains your habit. For instance, I built the habit of exercise many years ago, about 10, 12 years ago, and once I build it, it's there. I want to exercise in the morning because I like the way it makes me feel. So that is an example from my own experience. Now let's talk briefly about breaking bad habits by inverting. Charlie Munger, he's an American billionaire investor. He's the vice chairman of Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway. Buffett calls him his partner and right-hand man. He says, invert, always invert. Turn a situation or a problem upside down. Look at it backwards. Well, what does he mean? Well, we can take those 4 parts to creating a habit and we can turn them upside down. So first, recognize that something is not a goal habit, or whether it's a pleasure habit or a goal habit. Second, apply the inversion of the above 4 steps. So you need to know, is this a goal habit that's taking me where I want to go, or is this a pleasure habit? Most of the time, it's pleasure habits that we're wanting to break. Make it invisible by removing the environmental cues that set this bad habit off. That's like get bad food out of your refrigerator, just have carrots and celery or whatever. Make it unattractive by focusing on the benefit of not doing this bad habit. Make it difficult by increasing the steps you need to take to act out this bad habit. Make it unsatisfying by making the cost of this bad habit public and painful. Make a commitment to other people and then stick with your commitment, or else you feel shame. Benjamin Franklin also said, "'Tis easier to prevent bad habits than to break them." So true. You got to get out of bad habits now. So look at some tools that can help you to stay on track. For me, I created my own planner book, and I use this to stay on track with my goals. You can do it on any type of paper or planner. Make progress, and it feels great when you are making progress. So amplify your progress by using a habit tracker to measure your repetitions. In fact, I've got my phone right here, and I'll show you that there's a habit tracker that I use, and it's called Habit Share, right there in the upper left-hand corner. Habit Share. Habit Share, all one word. It's an app on the App Store, and it is very helpful for me. Record each measurement immediately after you complete the habit. Make it prominent by making a mark on a chart. In fact, I have chart paper. Woo! Crazy. I got this massive chart paper where sometimes I'll make a chart and put it on the wall. I'm getting ready, I pulled this out because I'm getting it ready to do it for my mom, to help my mom and the staff in the house to keep focused on achieving that goal. So, challenge yourself to avoid breaking the chain of marks on your calendar or on your chart. And if you miss one, okay, just say, okay, I'm never going to miss 2 in a row. And then automate measurement, but sometimes apply manual tracking like that chart for a critical habit. Now, Stephen Guise, who wrote the book Mini Habits, Smaller Habits, Bigger Results, said, by developing and practicing good habits each day, you affirm that you do have control over the very core of your life in the midst of the chaos. You can also use avoidance of pain as a motivator. Pain is an effective teacher. The more immediate the pain, the less likely the behavior. Behavior changes more quickly when actions have immediate consequences. Think of putting your hand on the stove. You immediately react to that. Reduce the time between action and consequences through simple methods like a chart or a calendar on your wall that will give you a good feeling. Prevent bad habits by adding an instant cost to the action to reduce the odds of you doing it. And make a habit contract. That's an agreement between you and another person that states your commitment to a particular habit and the punishment if you don't follow through. Set up some emotional and even monetary consequences if you don't follow the agreement. And knowing that your failure will be public and painful can be a powerful motivator. I would like to introduce you to Zig Ziglar. He lived until 2012. He's an American author, but mainly he's known for sales. And his most famous book was Zig Ziglar's Secrets of Closing the Sale. And he said, people often say that motivation doesn't last. Well, neither does bathing. That's why we recommend it daily. Do those habits daily. Finally, let's wrap up by discussing how habits bring mastery and competitive advantage. That's what we all want in our work, in our business, competitive advantage. Well, here it comes. Apply habits where you can win. Focus your energy on where you're currently winning. To maximize your odds of success, compete in a field that best suits you. That field is usually the area that favors your strength. If you're tall and you're fast, be a runner. If you're short and you're strong, be a weightlifter, be a bodybuilder. But try to match as best you can your dispositions. Habits are more manageable when they are in an area that you're naturally good at. Right habits in the right area are easy. Wrong habits in the wrong area, well, they're hard. So shift from areas where you're destined to lose. As he says in the book, when you are losing, search for the new areas where you are more equipped to compete. Discover what's most satisfying to you by answering the following questions. Who do you want to be with? And what do you want to do? And where can you contribute the most in this world? And what do you do with ease? Avoid just working hard to win the game everyone else is playing by creating your own field of competition that favors your strengths and avoids your weaknesses. I'm going to give you a great example for me. It's the Valuation Masterclass and the Valuation Masterclass Bootcamp, where I take my knowledge of finance and combine it with my experience as an analyst into a practical course. When someone says, well, what's a competing course cost? I said, there is no competing course. This is my knowledge, my expertise applied into this very intense course. Find the area that you can compete where you're alone in that competition. Learn to love repetition. Most people fail because they quit when habits get boring. Learn to appreciate boring. In fact, successful athletes are masters of overcoming the monotony of repetition. Excellence comes from being fascinated with the slight gains you get from doing the same thing repeatedly. Zig Ziglar also said, there's no elevator to success. You have to take the stairs. It's hard, but you can do it. Habit awareness leads to mastery. Repetition plus continuous improvement leads to mastery. Perfect a tiny habit through repetition, then build on this foundation by adding the next habit. If you stay aware of the outcomes of your habits and constantly adjust based upon this feedback, you will be continually improving and you'll be far ahead of your competitors. Doug Henning, who was a famous magician when I was young, said, the hard must become habit. The habit must become easy. The easy must become beautiful. This is the point of mastery. Mastery is all about the idea of eventually that habit becomes beautiful. So, some final thoughts. I want to leave you with Vince Lombardi, and he won 5 NFL championships in 7 years. He never had a losing season as a head coach in the NFL, and his regular season winning percentage was 74%. That is extremely successful. In fact, my latest calculation of the success ratio of Warren Buffett is that he succeeded 67% of the time. These are real winners. And what did he say? Winning is not a sometime thing. It's an all-time thing. You don't win once in a while. You win. You don't do things right once in a while. You do them right all the time. Winning is a habit. Unfortunately, so is losing. So there you have it. The 6 parts that I take away. Remember, we've got this checklist cheat sheet here that you can download below in the description. And that is James Clear and his book, Atomic Habits, and what I've learned from it.